Hey guys, this is Ash and you're watching WriterGAsh. So today we're gonna talk about Assassin's Blade. And before we go into that, I just want to show you this beautiful stenciled edge. This color is my absolute favorite one that I have done for these books. Like the jewel toned blue fits this book so well, and it just is the most gorgeous color that I've ever seen. Anyway, so the Assassin's Blade. Before we go into the spoilers, so the Assassin's Blade's basically a prequel to Throne of Glass, but the reason I read it third is because I feel like I need Throne of Glass to set up Selena's character, because here it's basically like short stories about Selena, and I think these are more impactful once you already know her, and Throne of Glass does do a better job of that. And I don't see a fault in reading these first, because then when you read Throne of Glass and Crown of Midnight, when you look at all the little references that it makes to these stories, you're like, hey, that's where it's from. Oh my god, this is so exciting. And on a reread, that was great. But I don't think I would have actually, like, even if I had read this first the first time around, I wouldn't have enjoyed it, because I wouldn't know who the heck I'm reading about. The emotional impact this book had, I wouldn't have had it if I had gone into it without being already in love with Selena. So I needed Throne of Glass before I could read this, and it might be different for you, but this is my recommended reading order. Okay, so The Assassin's Blade has 5 short stories: The Assassin and the Pirate Lord, The Assassin and the Healer, The Assassin and the Desert, The Assassin and the Underworld, and The Assassin and the Empire. And these stories kind of are cohesive. They're like sequential, like one happens right after the other and ties in together, so you can't just read any one of them, but they're broken into like these different events that happen in Selena's life and really set up the next stories. So the end of this sets up Throne of Glass. So yeah, you could totally read it first. I think like if you enjoy short stories, you might really enjoy reading this first. It's just you don't get the depth of the character as much. This does make Selena a better character once you've already got the basis from Throne of Glass. And I quite love these books. I love how we get to see her as a child, really. Not a child, she's almost an adult at this point. She's 16, 17 in these stories, and yeah, to me it's child. But it's nice to see her in that phase, like her in her prime as an assassin, really. And to see how she ends up where she ends up at the end of this book, which I'm not gonna mention because you might not have read Throne of Glass. This might be the first book you're picking up, and if this is you watching this video without actually have read this book, I don't want to spoil it. That being said, this is a wonderful book, and up ahead are spoilers for all of these stories. I do have them sectioned off into each of the novellas, but in these videos I might have spoilers for the rest of the novellas as well, so go into it knowing that I'll be spoiling every novella from here on out. Anytime I have any future books mentioned that are not The Assassin's Blade, I will raise the book like that. That way it's a sign for you to skip forward until you no longer see the book. And that way you know that I am talking about series spoilers to Kingdom of Ash level spoilers, and not just talking about Assassin's Blade. When it's not up there, I'm no longer spoiling you guys, so you're good to watch that if you've read The Assassin's Blade. So first, let's talk about Assassin and the Pirate Lord. In this short story, Selena is sent to Skull Bay, and there she delivers a letter to the pirate lord Rolf, only to find out Urban had sent her and Sam to retrieve slaves for him, something she is vehemently against. And her reaction to that, I fucking applaud her for. She frees the slaves. She frees all the slaves and then makes Rolf sign a thing that says he'll never trade slaves again. And yeah, I kind of love this story because we get to see her and Sam's dynamic as kind of rivals, and this point, we don't know that Sam's been in love with her, so we don't know anything about their relationship beyond the fact that Selena doesn't like Sam. And I really think that as we get to know her character better in this, we get to see more about her childhood, about Sam's role in her life. It all becomes more clear about everything that went on in Throne of Glass and Crown of Midnight. Anytime she talked about any of these shots, or she mentions the Skull Bay incident, she mentions the Red Desert stuff. So like, this novella really makes all of those things very, very clear. And that being said, I did like watching that scene with her and Sam working together to free the slaves. And at the end, when she thinks Sam's hurt, she actually, for the first time, feels something for him and like embraces him. And I think one of my favorite lines is when she goes, "If you ever tell anyone I embraced you, I will gut you." And that is just so Selena. And then, speaking of Rolf, he is an interesting character here. I wasn't sure how to feel about him here. I know he did things he did out of necessity, but the fact that he traded in slaves, I find really hard to get past. Spoiler for like the rest of the series. Despite that, I just really liked his dynamic with Selena and with Aelin in Empire of Storms. I think that was one of my favorite scenes in Empire of Storms, when she like walks in and plops all the gems off his desk. It's a really funny scene in my opinion. But no, I think that Rolf is an interesting character, and learning more about him later on in the series makes it easier to like him. But I will be honest, Assassin's Blade Rolf, I'm not a big fan of Rolf in Assassin's Blade. And then let's move on to the next story. Moving on to The Assassin and the Healer. So in this story, we meet Irene Towers. Irene is, in the story, a barmaid working to make enough money to go to Antica so she can study at the Torre Chesme to be a healer. Her mother was a healer, and when Adalyn basically took over everything, they killed her because she was an exceptional magical healer. And it's really heartbreaking hearing Irene's story, and this background we get to her character is so important. And just seeing Irene and Selena meet at this point in time is just really like builds into something great. I think that's why I really like Assassin's Blade. It makes some of the later scenes in the series that much more impactful. Like, I remember when we meet Irene again, I was so excited because I knew who she was. She wasn't someone absolutely new. And when she talked about the woman that once saved her life and taught her the value of protecting herself, taught her to fight for herself, to go after what she wants, and the impact Selena leaves on her, the impact she leaves on so many people, it's just epic. I just think these stories kind of connect Selena's character together. Like, it really provides a background for who she is despite everything else. So the next novella is The Assassin and the Desert. And this is honestly my favorite novella amongst all of them. I absolutely loved Selena experiencing the Red Desert and meeting the Silent Assassins. And my absolute favorite part of it was her training with the Master and him showing her what a kind teacher is like. And I think she really needed that in her life. I also really did like her relationship with Ansel, and it was heartbreaking when Ansel betrays her and the Silent Assassins. But despite the fact that I hate how Ansel went about things, I can see her motivations and I can understand it. And I also see that like the master and Selena understood why she went about things the way she did. Then there was also the fact that Selena is just kind of recovering from the aftermath of what happened in Skulls Bay. And like she remembers Sam yelling that he would kill Arabin for what he was doing to Selena, and coming to the realization that maybe she might have feelings for Sam, and like coming to terms with that. Although I kind of would have liked to see her have something for like a fleeting moment in time with Ilias, because I really like the dynamic with them. I think they kind of mesh well together, even temporarily, but like her and Sam were epic, so no complaints there. While I'm excited to see her make her way to Sam, I'm also terrified of what's coming next, because we all know what's happening next. But back to Ansel. A lot of things now that I'm reading it, I'm like, oh my god, this is fucked up. Ansel had been in a relationship with Mikhail since she was 15. She was a child and he was an adult, and that is creepy on so many levels. And Selena recognizes that, like obviously she does, but oh my god, like how did I not realize how creepy that was before? And I think she did love Mikhail in a way, but she also felt resentful of him because of how everything was. And I don't know. I don't think they should have been in a relationship, period. But like, I do wish we got to see the aftermath of Ansel betraying everyone from Ansel's point of view, because I would have liked to see how she deals with betraying the silent assassins, not just Mikhail. These people, she'd lived with them for years. Like, did that not have an impact on her and how she dealt with everything? I know, like, she resented them, but they were her family for so long. And how does that play into things, right? Anyway, so those are some of my thoughts on The Assassin and the Desert. And I think this is definitely my favorite. I just love the silent assassins so much. And spoiler for the rest of the series, like Assassins Kingdom of Ash level spoilers. One of my favorite scenes in the entire series is when Adian is like, what has she ever, like, what have you ever done? And then when she's gone, the silent assassins, amongst others, walk up. That like Selena had been calling in every favor she was owed, every relationship she had built. She called in Wendlin, she called in the silent assassins, she called in every motherfucking person she knew and formed an army in a way only Selena Serdothian and Aelin Galatinius could. The Assassin and the Underworld. So this is the fourth novella in the Assassin's Blade, and this begins when Selena gets back from the Red Desert. And it starts off with just her trying to go back to her normal life and working with Arabin on one of the missions he has given her. And her and Sam begin to get close. I just really love this story for her and Sam, because they finally get over themselves and talk for the first time. He tells her he loves her, and like she realizes, yeah, I do too. I think this is the one last fleeting moment of happiness for them. Now, to the main point. So in this story, Selena is actually working on stopping a slavery contract from happening, right? And then Arabin reveals to her that she actually ended up facilitating the contract rather than stopping it. And you can see how that like broke her. Arabin, who seems obsessed with her creepily, how did he think it was okay? Or like, how did he think she was gonna come back to him after he did that? Like, how? the man has no sense of reality. Anyway, so I think that this is a close second in my opinion. I really, really love this story. I loved seeing Selena's relationship with Sam Bloom. I loved seeing her in action as an assassin, despite the sad ending with her, like, you know, killing the guy who was trying to stop slavery. But alas. Okay, so the last novella is The Assassin and the Empire. And it is the most heartbreaking novella ever, because Sam and Selena are finally getting to a place where they can get out of Arabin's thumb and start a new life together. Selena's starting to trust Sam, and like she's trying to build up to telling him about her past, and then things just go horribly bad. The fact that she had to learn that Sam died from Arabin, that is the most heartbreaking thing ever. Like, the man who is responsible for all of this is the reason she found out. And she doesn't even know it was Arabin that betrayed her. I just hate him so much. I hate him. And they were doing one last mission so they could pay him off, so they could go away and start a life together. And I kept thinking, just go to the Red Desert. The Mute Master will provide you guys a shelter in the time it takes for you to be able to establish yourself elsewhere. That would have been the smart thing to do. I think Sam was the perfect person for Selena, and they were destined to be together. And then, spoiler for everything else, because if you just read Assassin's Blade, you don't know certain things. Aelin is just, I know Aelin and Selena are the same person, but they are different at the same time. Selena had to be created for Aelin to survive, and when Aelin could survive on her own again, Selena was finally able to rest. That is how I look at this situation. And for Selena, Sam was her person, and Aelin has ruin, but Selena will always be with Sam. And I think that is so heartbreaking, because they never even got a chance to start that life together that they dreamed about. I just wish they had the shot. They got a few more moments of happiness before it all went to hell. But with that being said, that is it for the book talk about Assassin's Blade. I broke it up into the different short stories or novellas, because I wanted to talk about each as I was reading them, and I am excited to get to Air of Fire and start that journey all over again.